Welcome to Simon Jordan Unleashed, an unfettered, uninterrupted, dynamic vantage point on some of the subject matters that have got under my skin over the weekend. My agenda is calling out mediocrity. This was billed as the greatest game in football. Exclusive to talkSPORT YouTube viewers. I listened to some aha music, flip-flop around, changing their minds left, right and centre. People don't say what they mean, they don't mean what they say. Trust me, I'm going to say what I mean and I'm going to mean what I say. It's been brought to my attention recently, unbeknownst to me, that I seem to have an agenda against Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And I'm unfairly making observations about his credentials and about the success of Manchester United or the lack of success. My agenda is not about calling out Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as a football manager. My agenda is calling out mediocrity. And my aspirations for teams like Man United, who once upon a time were the poster boys for English football and the Premier League, is to say that we should be expecting excellence, we should be expecting ambition and aspirational characters. And my challenge with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is not that he isn't a decent football man, is that my expectations of the elite is that they are actually the elite. When we talk about agendas, too often we are confronted with so-called pundits that flip-flop around, changing their minds left, right and centre. I think there's something to be said for having the courage of your convictions. I've constantly said for 2.5 years that, we are being convinced that mediocrity is a stable diet of what you should expect from footballers and football managers, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, to my mind, embodies that. Look, I watched the Man United-Liverpool game. I sat there. I thought I'd get into the spirit of it. A lot of my friends when I live in Marbella in Spain have Norwegian backgrounds, and they describe Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as the luckiest Norwegian alive, I adapted that phrase and used it in the show with Jim. So I thought to myself, I'll get it full into this now. I got some Norwegian bunad, which is their folk outfits, and put some on. I listened to some aha music. I got some pickled herrings, which is the cuisine of Norway, and I thought I'd sit there and watch Manchester United under the tenure of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Now, I watched a game yesterday that even P.T. Barnum, who was the greatest showman in the world, would have difficulty advocating as anything vaguely worth watching. Sky's pundits, like so-called snake oil salesmen, trying to tell us that in some shape or form that was a meaningful game of substance and quality and character and ability. What we saw was a very pedestrian game of football, brought to us by a group of players that, in my view, aren't performing anywhere near the level that one would expect of the elite. Of course, there'll be a background of the reasons why, and the reasons why you can't expect certain things from certain players, but this was billed as the greatest game in football, the clash of the titans, and ultimately what we saw was a very bland fare. And it's disappointing because we bring this league, the Premier League, to the world. We regularly advocate that ultimately it's the ultimate experience. It's the best football in the world. And what we got to see from the two elite sides, the two biggest clubs in the country, was a boring game of football that would be no credit to anybody. So when we talk about agendas, it might be that sometimes you have to give credit where credit's due. And I was actually, after the game, more impressed with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's attitude and outlook than I have been previously, but I'm consistent in my belief that in order to be the elite, you absolutely have to be. And we are constantly being fed a stable diet of mediocrity, and perhaps that is what mediocrity, perhaps that's what we are now becoming acclimatized to, mediocrity. I don't want to be. I think mediocre managers are being given top jobs, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer embodies that.